Hello everyone, my name is Hannah Frank and I'm the communications lead for the Alberta chapter. I traveled to Kinamara, Bolivia in 2022 as the media manager, and today I'm going to be walking you through tower construction. To start off the video, I just want to walk through the objectives or goals of this tutorial. I'll be covering the tower construction sequence step by step, as well as reviewing all the necessary safety procedures. At the end, I'll provide you a quick summary to help reinforce what we've covered. Okay, let's get started. The first thing we will cover is tower layout. To begin this step, you will be referring to the tower details for the necessary dimensions and then marking them onto the tier. This is demonstrated in the top left video by Clemente and Teodoro. Once the dimensions are marked, you'll need to confirm them and make sure they are made with respect to the center line. You can see Ryan, our construction manager, doing this in the bottom right corner. Next, we need to prepare the materials. One material you will need to prepare is rebar. First, you'll need to cut the rebar using a rebar cutter, similar to the one in the photo on the left. It's a good idea to cut all the rebar for the entire bridge right when it arrives to ensure you have enough. Next, you will need to bend the rebar, and this will be done using either a rebar bender or a field-constructed bending table. As you can see on our site, we constructed a bending table, and Teodoro is demonstrating how to bend the rebar. In terms of safety, we expect the basics here: hard hat, gloves, steel toe boots, safety glasses, and high vis. From this point on, these 5 items are your essentials and should be worn in pretty much every situation, so I won't be bothering to list them every time. For both of these activities, you're going to want to be aware of pinch points and avoid them as best as you can. Another material we will need to prepare for this job is mortar and concrete. You should be very familiar with mixing concrete by this stage, as you would have needed to mix lots for your foundation and tier, so I'll just review the safety items quickly. Gloves, preferably nitrile, safety glasses, and masks, preferably a KN95. When mixing volcanoes, we are going to want to practice proper shoveling techniques in order to avoid back injuries. Also, please take breaks when needed, as mixing concrete is hard work. On that note, don't try to keep up with the locals. They are running on pure coca and used to doing hard manual labor every day, so you will injure yourself if you try and keep up. Also, make sure everyone is aware of the mix ratios and that someone is tracking material usage at all times. Some of you may be lucky enough to use a concrete mixer on your site. This saved us so much time on our project, and we were really happy to be able to use it. Let's cover the important safety points for working with the mixer. First, you're going to want to be wearing your basic PPE, but there is an extra emphasis on gloves, masks, and safety goggles when using the mixer. This is because you're hauling buckets really fast, it's dusty, there's cement mix flying everywhere, which you can actually see in the video, and concrete also sometimes will splash out. You're going to want to be extra careful if you're working close to it. Also, I personally would recommend hearing protection when working with the mixer, as I found it to be quite loud. Additionally, you're going to have only one person pouring material into the mixer at a time, as Teodoro and one of our community members are demonstrating. You're also going to want to remove or secure any loose-fitting clothing, as there are spinning parts and you don't want that getting caught in the machinery. Now we will move on to constructing the base level. Now that your materials are prepared, we will start to construct the base level. You'll start by placing 4 masonry blocks on the 4 corners of your marked layout, which was completed in step 1. Once you have your corners set, you'll continue placing bricks until you have built your 20-centimeter tall perimeter. The main safety consideration for this step, and for the following steps, is working at heights. On our bridge, we only had 1 tier, so we didn't have to use any fall pro. But if your bridge has 2 or 3 tiers, it is likely that you will need to implement some sort of safety measures for working at heights. In general, though, just be careful not to fall off the tier. U-shaped bars will now be inserted into the center of your perimeter. This is going to be like the skeleton of your towers. You'll then secure the U-shaped bars by filling the remaining base with concrete. Now that our base is constructed, we can move on to constructing the towers. Let's take a look at how our towers are constructed. First, If required, you will need to break the bricks to the desired size. Once they are the size you want, you can place them, always starting with the 4 corner pieces first. Next, you will make sure they are all at the same level using a flat edge. Once the bricks are in place how you want, the extra concrete is scraped away. This sequence is repeated until you have constructed both sides to their desired height. You may also notice in the bottom left video that there are little hooks sticking out of the tower. Those are placed while building the tower, and they act as anchors for the eventual fencing. The most important safety consideration in this step is to be careful when breaking bricks. As you can see in the top left video, Clemente had to break a lot of bricks in order for them to fit together properly. You'll notice how he is getting low and breaking the bricks away from himself and others. He is very controlled and deliberate in his actions, and he's not just spraying brick pieces everywhere. You'll also notice he is wearing the nitrile gloves we talked about before, as he was in close contact with the concrete mix when placing the bricks. Also, a reminder about the potential need for fall pro should your bridge require it. Now that the masonry for your tower is complete, we need to fill the tower with concrete, and this will be done in 20 to 40 centimeter lifts. The lifts are necessary as to not overload the masonry and cause a blowout. We used a stick to rod the concrete after pouring every layer, and this is to make sure there was an even distribution and ensure there were no large air gaps in the concrete, especially in and around the rebar. The photo on the bottom of the screen shows how full the tower was at the end of this stage. We can move on to embedding the wheel saddle. Now that the tower is filled, we need to embed our wheel saddle. You will place one steel wheel in each tower, ensuring that the tire valve hole is rotated such that it is not visible. After you have done that, you will need to use a level and likely a tape measure to ensure that the wheel elevations are equal to one another and to the ground. Clemente is demonstrating this in the 2 photos on the right. Our next step will be placing concrete around the wheels. Now that the wheel saddles are embedded, you need to cover them in concrete. Clemente did the placement of concrete by hand, so he is of course wearing his nitrile gloves. Once the wheels are covered, you'll need to smooth the concrete out using a finer mix. You can see Teodoro doing this in the last step. On our bridge, we actually completed this step at a later time, but I included it in this stage just for simplicity. Now we can move on to the next step, which is placing the concrete walkway hump. The last step in our process is the pouring of the concrete walkway hump. Here, Teodoro is demonstrating how he placed the concrete and developed the shape of the hump. As you can see, there is a lot of contact with the concrete, so you're going to want to be wearing gloves if you do this. The completed walkway hump is shown in the photo at the bottom of the screen. And there you have it. Your towers are now complete, and that means soon you'll get to pull cables, start decking, and before you know it, you'll have completed an entire footbridge. Let's have one final look at all the steps and necessary safety precautions to make sure you remember everything. Let's start the summary by quickly going over the construction sequence again. First, we will lay out the tower. Then we will prepare the materials, namely the concrete and rebar. Then we construct the tower base level, which is the 20 centimeter masonry perimeter and embedding of the U-shaped bars. Tower masonry is completed next, and then the wheel saddles are embedded and have concrete placed around them. Finally, we will pour the concrete walkway hump. Now, let's recall all the safety points we covered in these stages. First and foremost, you're going to want to make sure you're wearing the proper PPE at all times. This includes a hard hat, high vis, gloves, safety glasses, and steel-toed boots at a minimum. You may also be required to wear a mask, hearing protection, or nitrile gloves depending on the activity. For example, when working with concrete, you're going to want to take advantage of that extra PPE, and you're also going to want to follow the proper shoveling techniques so you don't hurt your back. You'll also want to follow proper procedure and take extra precautions if you're lucky enough to work with a cement mixer. Finally, if you have a bridge with lots of tiers, you'll likely need to consider additional safety measures for working at heights. Okay, that's all I have for everyone today. Thanks for listening and learning how to construct your towers. If you have any questions or want to talk about my experience traveling with EIA, please feel free to email me, and good luck on your upcoming bridge projects.